What's going on, guys? David Falla here, and I'm here with a new tutorial. So let's go ahead and start with this tutorial. We're gonna go ahead and start with a 5 zeros or trimmer or the machine with the lever closed, whatever you decide to use to create your first guideline. This is gonna be like a mid to high fade, to say it like that. We're not gonna go all the way up with the fade because since we're gonna keep the top kind of to the side, so then we want to keep the back a little bit thicker as well. So it's going to be like a thicker mohawk, to say it like that. So we're going to go ahead and use our trimmer to kind of create the shape of the tail. I mean, I'm using the Supra with the 5 zeros, which will be kind of like a trimmer. So, but you can use your trimmer for this step. Just make sure you make it straight. You know, obviously stand right in front of the client, so you can make sure that it's even, or use the mirror. That's fine, you know. Now we're gonna go ahead and skin the other side. Pretty much the same thing. We're gonna connect the temple to like the tail, pretty much, that we did. That will be my measurement, pretty much the way I'm measuring the haircut. It's kind of connecting those 2 points, kind of like a mid fade. You know, the client doesn't like it too low. Honestly, I would have done it like a little bit lower, but the client likes like fairly high. So that's why we created the guideline the way that we're doing it. And now after that, we're gonna go ahead and use the shaver, or you can use your razor. If you use a razor, you can use a shaver. Just what I always tell you, make sure that you don't go all the way to the first guideline, because then you're gonna leave a line there. It's gonna be hard to remove. So always leave a little space, just in case you create a line. You can always remove it using your trimmer, or even using the same shaver. I use the same shaver sometimes to remove any lines that I leave. Just stretch the skin, or use the shaver from top to bottom, and sometimes that removes the line too. So you know, there's many ways to remove it. Just make sure, try not to make the lines, obviously, when you know, try not to make like soft guidelines. Don't make like, you know, strong guidelines, because then it's gonna be a problem to remove. So we're gonna go ahead and use our clipper now for the second guideline. We're gonna open our lever, and this guideline is gonna be, I would say, like around like a finger length, and we're gonna start removing that guide right away. This is easier, I feel like, because for beginners, so they don't get lost. It's easier to just make a guide and erase it right away. So we're gonna start closing that lever little by little until, you know, halfway right now, and then we're gonna continue fading, remove that line that we see right there, and continue fading. As we close the lever, our strokes are gonna be, they're not gonna be that high, so you know, just keep that in mind. So we're gonna close that lever a little bit more, and starting to use a little bit more of the corners, just to have more control of the fade. And you know, pretty much that part is done. You can see, like, once you close it all the way down, it's gonna be, well, all the way up actually. Once you close the lever all the way up, then it's gonna be pretty much, the line is gonna be gone, right? If you, at the end of the haircut, if you see anything that you need to remove, then obviously go ahead and do that. You know, just retouch the fade, and just make sure that you leave all your retouches for the last part of the haircut. I think it's easier to do them at the end. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and use our clipper over comb technique to start creating the shape of the haircut, and also to kind of start blending the top into the side. So pretty much what I'm doing, I'm keeping the comb on a 90 degrees of the head, you know, avoiding rounding or moving the angle of the comb as the head rounds. So you know, always keeping it kind of straight, 90 degrees of the head, pretty much. And then what you're using is pretty much just playing with the lever. I mean, usually what I do lever with the clipper open, but if I need to close it, then I close it a little bit. If I want to get, you know, like, obviously cut the hair shorter, you know, it's up to you. You just gotta make sure that you start always a little bit, if you can, longer, so with the lever open or with a guard on, and then you start closing it little by little as you get more comfortable with it, because you gotta be careful. Clipper over comb, if you make a mistake, you're gonna make a hole. It's gonna be very, very hard to remove. So anyway, let's continue with this. So now that we use clipper over comb to kind of connect the top a little bit, the weight of the ridge, we're gonna connect it to the bottom. Then we're gonna go ahead and start using our guard. So we use 1.5 first, then with the lever open, and now we're using number 1, lever open. Then we're gonna start closing it little by little, and then this is gonna be kind of like a down fade style of fading, to say it like that. So we're gonna start always with lever open, then we're gonna always close it, and then and obviously starting from higher to lower. So in this case, we're gonna skip a lot of guards because that's why we use clipper over comb. Clipper over comb is great because obviously it allows us to create the shape and start fading right away, connect the sides with the top and things like that. So after that, you don't really have to do much of the use the rest of the guards. So here we're using still number 1, just playing with the lever a little bit in the corners. And now we switch guards, we're gonna use the 116. The 116 is gonna blend the 1 into the machine with the lever open. So that's this is pretty good and pretty useful guard. Now all machines come with it, and so if you don't have it, I would recommend you to buy it because it's going to be very useful for you. So the same thing with starting with the lever open, and then we're closing it little by little until we see the line is gone. Once that's gone and you need to do some retouch, how I said at the beginning, then you can go ahead and do it. Obviously start with the lever open and then close it little by little. Use a lot of the corners. It's at this point I think it's very important to use the corners, just because you can make a mistake at any moment if you use the whole blade. So it's good to get used to using the corners, and that's it. So once we're done with the fade, we're gonna move on to do the shape up. So pretty much just what I always tell you, just make sure that you kind of keep it as natural as possible. Like in this case, for example, right, the client wanted his forehead to be straight, so the corners didn't grow, the hair doesn't grow much there, but in the middle it grows a lot. So for me to make it straight, I have to push it back a tiny bit. Obviously make sure that you talk to your client and have the consultation, and make sure you let them know that for you to get the forehead straight, you might have to push it back a little bit in certain parts, just because obviously it depends on the growth of the forehead. And if the client's okay with it, then do it, but obviously always trying to make it as natural as possible is very important, because if once you start pushing it back too much, more than you need it, then the regrowth is not the best, and then the client in a couple of days is gonna start losing the shape that you gave him, and they're not gonna like it, nobody's gonna like it. So just make sure you don't push it back too much, just enough to make that straight, and that's it. That's the most important thing, and the one thing that many barbers fail. How many clients I get that just come in with their shape at all pushed back because they went too far, without being needed. So but obviously make sure that you talk to your client about this. So anyway, once we're done, we're gonna cut the top. So make sure you wet the hair fully, make sure the roots are always wet, because this is very important. So here I'm using a technique that many of you have been asking me to use, which is kind of like a shear over comb to cut the top. Many barbers use this technique. Personally, I don't really like it too much, just because I feel like you lose control a lot of what you're trying to do, when you can kind of mess up your shape. If you're trying to create, let's say, like a square shape on top, it's kind of easy to remove those corners. So I'm using it just so I can show you guys how I would do it, and like, don't get me wrong, sometimes I do it when the hair is really short or whatever, but if I can grab the hair with my fingers, I prefer doing that. So here, and that's exactly what I'm doing, just because I don't really trust myself with that technique and longer hair. So here I'm checking, and how you can see it wasn't even at all. So this is always good, that's why you gotta cross check out your haircut. So here I'm just cross checking, making sure everything's even. How you can see, I'm kind of rounding that corner a little bit, just because the client has a lot of hair, and I don't want to add more corners to that thick hair, so the hair gets like heavier there. So I just rounded it a little bit. This side we're gonna round it a tiny bit as well, like not too much, just a little bit, just because this is where the hair falls, and I want it to overlap with the hair on the ridge, and then create even more weight. But that's about it. Like, just make sure that you also you want to keep it square, I understand, but also make sure that you if the client has too thick of hair, then you don't want to create more and more volume on the corners. So and here we're going to cut the back, and pretty much what I'm doing is just creating my first guideline right in the middle, and I'm kind of just connecting that. I'm making it a traveling guide just to connect the rest to the corners, and that's it. That's pretty much it. Is just working, you create your guide in the middle, and then work your way out of it. make sure you always connect the top with the, well, not always, not always, but you know, with this type of hairstyle you want to connect the crown, so the top with the back. So make sure that when you pull the hair 90 degrees, make sure that the top and the back are kind of connected. You don't want to leave too much of a corner there, because you want the back to kind of hug the back of the head, so it's a little more rounded. So just make sure you connect those corners. So here I'm gonna blow dry the hair. Usually I like to make sure that, you know, like I'm drying the hair obviously in the direction where I want the hair to go, just because it's gonna make it easier for me to style after. So just make sure, because I see people sometimes grab the blow dry and just dry the hair all over the place, and then when they try to style it, then obviously it's gonna go all over the place, because that's exactly what you did. So just make sure you always blow dry the hair in the direction you want the hair to go. So I'm using the razor now after applying a hot towel and putting a little bit of shaving gel. I'm just stretching the skin here, using the blade on a 45-degree angle, and just following the lines that I already had that I created with my Andes trimmer. So you know, make sure that, because it's something else I noticed some clients do, and that is that once they pass the razor, they kind of push those lines back even more to make them sharper, and sometimes you don't need to. Obviously, how I said, it's all about consultation. Always talk to your client about this. So I'm adding a little bit of fibers. The client was going on to eat, I think, with his girl or something, so he wanted a little bit of fibers on his shape up, just to make the haircut look a little bit sharper. So pretty much what I do is I apply a little bit of hairspray first, then I apply the fibers. I mean, you can put a business card and when you apply the fibers, but in this case, since the fibers you can actually move them with the blade or the trimmer, then I just apply them kind of all over the where I want them to be, and I just move them with the razor. I mean, that's the way I do it. There's many ways to do it, but you know, this is kind of like a quick way to do it if you want to say it like that. But if you want to take your time and apply it with the business card, you can also go ahead and do that. So the same thing, just make sure that when you are passing the razor again, make sure you don't put a lot of pressure, because remember, you pass it once, you pass it again and again and again, you're gonna start irritating the skin. So that's one little advice that I want to give some of you guys. Just make sure that you're very gentle with the razor, so if you're gonna pass it a couple of times, it's not gonna irritate the skin. And obviously, after every time you use the razor, make sure you use an aftershave, not alcohol. Some of you like putting alcohol on people, and remember, the alcohol kind of is gonna dry the skin, so you gotta go ahead and put aftershave. The aftershave is actually gonna kind of help the skin recover, so this is very important. I'm applying a little bit of product. This is gonna be a little bit of like a wax with shiny, like a shiny wax. It looks more like hair gel, but it's actually a wax. So just because of this type of hairstyle, remember, this hairstyle is a little bit more like soccer player look, so you want it to be a little bit shiny and a little bit kind of wet in looking. So that's what I think that the type of product that goes well with a style like this. For this type of hairstyle, I would definitely use a comb, just because we want it to be very kind of refined on the top and organized. And that's about it. That's the final look, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to subscribe, like it, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.